I think a lot of people like me think that one day the government will just erase all of our HECS debts magically.
It's been 8 years since graduation, but far from disappearing, Ruby Bisson's HECS debt is set to rise a whole lot faster.
My HECS debt is 3 times the amount of my superannuation balance at the moment, which when I look at that comparison, actually kind of freaks me out a little bit.
She owes over $60,000, but says she never really thought about it. But now, with a HECS hike on the horizon, she's desperately trying to pay it down.
The idea of saving for a mortgage, buying a house, having all of that security takes priority, but I think with the rising indexation, a lot of us are reconsidering what's important from a financial perspective.
The HECS system is extremely outdated and needs to be looked at because obviously the government wasn't prepared for this, students weren't prepared for this.
Before we had HECS, uni was free. It was part of Gough Whitlam's mission to make Australia fairer in the 70s. But a decade later, the government could no longer afford it. So Bob Hawke brought in the Higher Education Contribution Scheme, or HECS. It's technically an interest-free loan, repaid once your wage hits a certain threshold. But it's indexed to keep up with inflation. And because that's soaring, from June, the indexed rate will jump from 3.9% to 7.1%. The average owed in HECS is about $24,000, so a graduate would need to earn around $63,000 to avoid their debt growing faster than they can pay it off.
Being told it's this great idea that has no fault, that debt you pay back in 2, 3, 4 years. It's now looking like a decade.
Making the idea of earning while you're learning a lot more attractive. New research shows tradies are happier and earning about 16% more than their tertiary-educated equivalent. So is the degree really worth the debt?
When I did my degrees, they were much more affordable.
I don't think degrees are that relevant these days in the business world.
I know definitely for people of my era, if you went to university, you were seen as being smarter, more employable.
And the unemployment stats back that idea up. The longer you study, the less likely you are to be out of work, with only 2% of postgrads lining up at Centrelink. But there are varying degrees of success. Over 90% of pharmacy and medicine graduates are in full-time work, while just over half of the creative arts kids have permanent positions.
The dropout figures for university students is rising. Almost a third of university students don't finish their degree, so there needs to be some dramatic shift.
So with the future grim for graduating Gen Zs, should we be encouraging more kids to ditch the degrees?
We are sold the idea, I think, when we go to university that it's the best, debt you can have.
Good
a
debt.
HECS debt. Good debt. Don't even look at it. It pays itself off. That's what we're told. And it's like it wasn't created for this level of inflation. And a lot of people, I know that as I've paid off my HECS, I barely looked at it. A lot of people don't even know how much it is. And then if you are trying to buy a house in a property market that's also wild, then that's a debt against your name, which is quite terrifying. Or you've got someone going on mat leave who isn't going to be making money for a few years, but inflation is affecting the HECS debt.
So the debt accumulates.
Yeah.
I feel like they're not up front. I have a university degree, which surprises a lot of people. But I feel like they're not up front when you're signing up for your course. I remember in year 12, they were just like, just tick this button. And then it's like, you're in. That's all it is. No one told me there was going to be $30,000 of debt next to my name.
Tick the button, you say?
Tick the button. Yeah, I did.
Which degree was that?
Yeah, I did a degree in Waleed being mean to me. My degree was
How many degrees do you have, Mr. Waleed?
Why are you asking?
Because you're...
Well, I have 2 undergraduate and then a postgraduate, yes. Is that okay? Or?
Of course it is. It's more than I've got. But it did take me about 12 years to pay it off. It's frustrating, but...
I think especially when a university degree seems like a prerequisite for any employment, which is the point that we've got to.
So I reckon that's the issue.
Yeah.
University degrees have exploded and the system wasn't designed for that. Because you can't have... If the government doesn't recoup any of this money, then the whole thing just falls apart because it's not affordable, and then you're relying entirely on international students. And so there has to be some kind of system. I wonder if it's about the threshold, because the last government brought down the point at which you start repaying the loan. If that was moved up, then the obligation isn't on you for a bit longer, and I reckon that might make a difference.
So you got a good coin, right? Because it's 48,000 at the moment.